So ahead of the key talks between the American President Donald Trump's peace envoy and officials of Ukraine, Kyiv appears to have lost another strategic city to Russia. After a year of brutal fighting, Russia claims to have captured the city of Pokrovsk that is often called the gateway to Donetsk. Now, Ukraine has dismissed Moscow's announcement as nothing but loud statements, but hours before the peace talks, the Russian Defense Ministry has released some new footage showing Russian soldiers in Pokrovsk's city center, raising the Russian flag. And it doesn't end there. Russia also claims to have captured the city of Vovchansk as well, located in the northeast of Ukraine. Now, Russia's battlefield claims announced by the Kremlin in a post on Telegram now ups the ante and the pressure on Kyiv as it seeks to bring the United States on its side in the fraught US-led negotiations that are aimed at ending this war. Now, Pokrovsk is a very crucial city. It is a road and a railway hub in the Donetsk region that had, before the war, at least about 60,000 inhabitants. But it has been the target of an intense Russian campaign for the last at least 18 long months. Just last month, Ukraine had sent reinforcements, including special forces, troops, to the city in a bid to try and fend off the Russian attack. But hundreds of Russian soldiers had managed to infiltrate into the city. The Kremlin said on Telegram over the weekend that its military chief of staff, Valery Gerasimov, had informed the Russian President Vladimir Putin about the capture of these two crucial Ukrainian cities. But the question is this: in the larger war, why does this matter? With the war dragging on, every delay in negotiation risks further territorial loss for Ukraine. The fall of Pokrovsk, if confirmed, could severely disrupt Ukraine's supply lines and will provide Russia a new launch pad to push further north and also further west. It also threatens to encircle a key Ukrainian garrison nearby. Meanwhile, Vovchansk, that is located in the Kharkiv region, has been devastated by combat since May 2024. The Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov had called its capture an important step towards victory, and reports now suggest that the Russian army last month had made its biggest advance in Ukraine since November 2024. So as far as Ukraine is concerned, it is not acknowledging the Russian claims of having captured these two cities. Now, Kyiv has not directly commented on Moscow's claims, but the General Staff of Ukraine said on Tuesday morning that its forces have stopped dozens of assaults in the Pokrovsk area, indicating that according to the Ukrainians, they are still contesting for the control of the city. Just a day ago on Monday, Andrei Kovalenko, the head of the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation, had cautioned that Russia will make many attempts to apply pressure on the front lines over the next week and will accompany this with some loud statements. He said that this was done exclusively for the Western audience and also to raise the diplomatic stakes amidst fresh negotiations on how to end the war in Ukraine. Now, the developments on the ground have come shortly after the high-level talks took place between the United States and the Ukrainian officials in Florida on the question of how to end this war. And it also has come just a day before the American President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is to meet with Vladimir Putin in the Russian capital. So is the United States about to strike Venezuela any time now? For many days, that's of course been the question in Caracas, across the Caribbean and around the world. No, it's because the United States is actually tightening its military posture dramatically and just off Venezuela's shores. In recent weeks, the United States has amassed an array of different assets in the Caribbean, dozens of advanced fighter jets, thousands of troops, guided missile destroyers, special operations forces, armed drones, gunships, and even, according to reports, a nuclear submarine. But the question is, of course, this: what is the purpose of this Donald Trump armada then? At this point, it remains unclear. But what is clear is that all of this is happening amid some rapidly escalating tensions with Venezuela. So what is Donald Trump's strategy here? Is it regime change that the United States is again planning? If not, why dispatch an entire naval and air armada so close to the borders of Venezuela? On the 1st of December, the U.S. Marine Corps MV-22 Ospreys and Harrier II jets were spotted at the Merchidita International Airport. And in Ponce, Puerto Rico, the aircrafts were seen delivering supplies, that is military supplies, as the crews unloaded this more military hardware and cargo. The personnel moved into bunkhouses and ground teams secured the area. Puerto Rico is fast becoming a potential forward hub for U.S. operations linked to the Venezuelan crisis. The build-up follows a series of American strikes on speedboats, which the Americans claim were actually being used for narco-trafficking by Venezuelan gangs in the Caribbean and also in the Eastern Pacific. Now, these American attacks in the Caribbean and in the Pacific have killed more than 80 people since early September. But one can argue that a war against narco-terrorists does not require this level of firepower. Now, behind the scenes, the Pentagon has reportedly generated a number of options to expand this campaign to target inside the Venezuelan territory itself, presumably in the hope of driving Nicolas Maduro out of power. But President Donald Trump late last month denied that he has any such plans for regime change, while senior White House officials are still unclear about the legal basis for carrying out these attacks in the Caribbean. And yet the deployments by the Americans continue. Now, this comes as the United States is increasing pressure on Maduro, whose options for a U.S. guaranteed safe passage have now narrowed. A brief phone call last month between Maduro and Donald Trump ended with Trump rejecting most of Maduro's demands. Now, soon afterwards, Trump declared Venezuela's airspace to be shut in its entirety, further heightening the confusion and the anxiety in Caracas. When asked whether his comments signaled imminent possible attacks on Venezuela, Donald Trump responded, "Don't read anything into it just yet." But the legality of the administration's deadly attacks against suspected drug traffickers has raised a number of difficult questions even within Washington, especially after reports that the survivors of one of the attacks was targeted again in a follow-up strike, triggering accusations of potential war crimes. So as fears of U.S. military action continue to mount, Nicolas Maduro has accused Washington of using drug trafficking as nothing more than a pretext to try and bring about regime change in Caracas. He has rejected what he has described as a slave's peace for the region. But the American campaign has already killed more than 80 people in the attacks that the Americans have carried out in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. Some have described these attacks to be extrajudicial killings. The Trump administration maintains that it is effectively at war only with the narco-terrorists, and yet the cost of this show of force are enormous. Now, operating a carrier strike group burns millions of dollars a day. Each boat strike costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the deployment has indirect strategic consequences. With the USS Gerald R. Ford positioned in South America, the US currently has no carriers in the waters of Europe or West Asia, and any land-based strikes would rely on Tomahawk missiles, of which the United States has a finite supply. The consequences of a full-scale attack would be even more uncertain. Air or missile strikes might not drive out Nicolas Maduro or may not trigger a coup, and a marine landing could lead to a prolonged quagmire, even if Maduro were to step down or is captured. The political aftermath is going to be extremely chaotic, creating more and not less space for cartels and traffickers to expand. And for Donald Trump, who fashions himself as the peacemaker president, surely a new war is hardly the image that he wants for himself. And if the White House's priority is to stem the flow of drugs into the United States, then it may need an entirely different strategy. More Coast Guard cutters, more sea operatives, and not more aircraft carriers or nuclear submarines stationed along the coast of Venezuela. Now, a visitor from deep space has fired up some fresh controversy again. New thermal gradient images of interstellar object 3I Atlas have revealed jets that look shockingly organized. And the scientists are asking, is this natural physics or is there something far stranger? Our next story gives you more details about this evolving cosmic mystery. Take a look.
The universe just handed us another riddle, and this one is firing jets. Fresh imaging of 3I Atlas, the Manhattan-sized interstellar object slicing past our solar system, has revealed something no one expected. Structured thermal plumes, firing in repeating patterns, almost as if under intentional control. The data comes from a new technique called thermal gradient imaging, capable of detecting tiny heat variations across fast-moving objects when applied to 3I Atlas. The results stunned researchers. Instead of random outgassing the kind seen in ordinary comets, the object released narrow-pulsed jets. They were evenly spaced, repeated, directional, almost engineered. Scientists are careful with their words, but they are not hiding their curiosity. 3I Atlas already carries a reputation. Telescopes around the world are zooming on this once-in-a-lifetime space object. Astronomers have captured its unusually smooth surface, its perfect axial stability, and its refusal to behave like any comet we've ever tracked. No dust tail, no chaotic spin, no natural fragmentation. Instead, it moved with eerie uniformity as if following a flight plan. And now, these new heat maps raise the stakes again. Researchers say the jets could theoretically be natural, the result of buried volatiles venting through narrow channels. But the clean patterns, the timing, the directional force, these resemble maneuvering bursts, not geological accidents. For now, scientists stay grounded. No claims, no conclusions, just one fact. 3I Atlas keeps behaving as if it has something to say, and the universe is listening.